Glute bridges. So this exercise, extremely important component of your fundamental exercises, along with things like McGill side bridges level 1 and 2, and your bird dogs level 1 and 2. Because for whatever reason, a lot of people that have got chronic back issues generally tend to have very tight, very weak glute muscles in the butt. And the trouble is, when that happens, because your hips are kind of, impaired and a bit stiff and don't want to work properly, you normally find that the body will adapt by, letting you kind of move from the lower back. So the lower back ends up doing, way more work than it should, and that's part of the, contribution to, if you've got disc bulges in, sort of lumbar region. Part of the reason is that you've just kind of overused that lower back, and one of the contributing factors to that could be that, your body doesn't want to use your hips because they're not very mobile and not very strong. So if we can replace that movement to the hips, that in turn is going to take a lot of that extra work off the back, and also let us keep that back a lot more stiffer and stable, and protect it from further injury. So glute bridges, pretty safe exercise because you're on the floor. Again, it's going to help most people to be working on these straight away, but that's not the case for everyone. Sometimes this can be a bit too much for people. We need to sort of work on a regression. So we're on our back, and then one of the most important things you want to do is get your feet in roughly the right place. So one of the things I definitely avoid is having your feet too far out, because when you're like this, and you try and squeeze your hips up, your hamstring is going to take over. And one of the things we definitely do not want in this exercise is the hamstring to take over this movement. We want to focus on the glutes and get the glutes restored and strong and in control. And that's the key to a good clean hip hinge and not chewing up your back when you're doing it. So as a rough guide, you put your arms down by your sides, and then you should be able to just about touch the heels of your feet, and I'll kind of give you at least a starting position in terms of how far away your feet are and how wide they should be. And after that, you just need to fine tune and adjust based on what works for you. So we're in this position now. We can have our arms out to your side, wherever you feel comfortable. And ultimately what we're looking for is you to be able to develop the control that even in this position, like I don't have to move, but I can tense my glute muscles like that. And then once I'm in this position, I can tense them, and then I can squeeze through them. So I'm squeezing the life out of them to squeeze my hips up, and by the time I get to the top here, in the maximum contraction, and they're absolutely squeezed on solid. We have a 10-second hold, and then we come down nice and smooth like that. Again, reinitiate, squeeze through the glutes, drive up, squeeze them as hard as we can so we get to the top, maximum contraction. We can start to get them to burn. That's one of the things we're looking for, is you get as much contraction as possible. So even with body weight, we can get a really good, strong signal go in there and get all those muscle fibers going and get them to absolutely burn. And when you first start, there's going to be a couple of, you might encounter a couple of problems. One might be that you can kind of tense your glutes. You know what that means, and you can squeeze up. As you squeeze up, they kind of get stuck, maybe halfway or a third of the way up. You can't seem to quite get it to go any further. If that's the case, it normally means you're really tight on the front, which is quite common. You've got a couple of options. You can either just keep working at it, and eventually you'll be able to get all the way up. Because as you're doing it, it's actually giving them a little bit of a stretch here as the glutes kind of take over. Or what you could do in terms of prep is do some quad rolling, maybe some stretching work on these first before you do the glute bridges, and that'll just make it a little bit easier to get up and should help you get a bit more of a clearer signal to the glutes. The other problem that you might encounter is that some people, because they're so used to not really having to try and isolate what the glutes do, it kind of just feels a bit vague, which obviously in terms of back health is a bit of a dangerous position to be in if you don't really know how to control your glutes. So in that case, it's just a question of you just got to keep practicing until you learn that control, and you can send that nice clear signal there and you know what you're doing. So, even if you initially start and you kind of, you come up and you get into here and you're only getting sort of 1s and 2s out, that's fine. I would just do them more often. So rather than trying to do, 3 sets of 8 to 12 all in one go, and maybe do a couple of sets of 1 to 2 in the morning, a couple of sets of 1 to 2 in the afternoon, a couple of sets of 1 to 2 in the evening, and then as your confidence with the movement grows, start to build those numbers up. But as a minimum standard, you want to be able to get to do 3 sets of 8 to 12 with nothing in your lower back, nothing in your hamstrings, and you can just get those glutes like absolutely burning on fire. That's what we want, that nice deep contraction and burn, so we know they're doing all the work, and that's what's going to start to restore your hips for you. And say, biggest thing to avoid, really, we really don't want the hamstrings taking over. So if that happens, if you say you go up for a rep and the hammy, they normally sort of go, they kind of cramp straight away. Just kind of, relax, give your legs a little shake off, see if you can get the hamstrings to, relax a little bit more, and then go back in, see if you can tidy up that movement. But that's your goal, is to build up, so you can do 3 sets of 8 to 12 with the glutes, and they should be on, absolutely screaming on fire by the time you get through to the last few reps. And we want to avoid anything on the hammies, anything on the lower back. Another thing to avoid is making sure you don't go too high as well, which if you're coming for your glutes properly, they'll kind of stop you. Like, I can't get any higher than that because they're on so tight, they'll prevent it. Some people kind of whip up a bit too quickly and they kind of go into hyperextension. You can start to feel it on your lower back. If that's the case, just come down a little bit lower and just see if you can fine tune that signal so it's more in here. It's not in the lower back. And again, sort of touched on it a second ago, don't come up too fast with these. A lot of people just kind of whip up and hold and down and whip up and hold. And that normally, if you're ingrained patterns, hamstrings and lower back, you just keep reinforcing that. We want to learn, the right way to get the hips moving. So don't be afraid, if you need to, take sort of, 4 to 5 seconds to come up on each rep. And then do your 10-second hold. Really learn to smooth that contraction out. Then once you're comfortable, then you can speed up a little bit. But even then, I'd still take at least a second or two to come up. I certainly wouldn't just whack, throw your hips up, because it will more than likely cause some problems for you. Like I say, sort of minimum standard really, 3 sets of 8 to 12 with just the glutes doing all the work. And that will give you a foundation then to start looking at things like, your squats and hip hinge movements like your deadlifts or variations of in single leg type stuff as well. But this exercise is really important to get the glutes firing properly and let them take the work off the lower back. But like with anything, take your time, be methodical, and then just be, patiently progressive, I would say, with them, until you've got that control over them. Just an extra point with the glute bridges, something that kind of popped into me after I finished the last bit of the video, is that it comes up sometimes if people have been to, whatever sort of classes or rehab before, and they've learnt this kind of habit with glute bridges, was kind of, instead of just coming up as one unit with the lower back, they kind of peel the back off the floor. I would suggest that if you've got lower back injuries, especially if you've got bulges and herniations, I would definitely not do that. Because if you've got bulges, flexion sort of around the lower spine is going to be a massive aggravator for you. Obviously you want to minimise that, and also the goal is that we want to teach stiffness in the lumbar, so it can just doesn't have to do all the work, and we want to be able to get the hips to do the actual movement themselves. So the way to do that is to try and use this as one unit. You can, if you want, if it helps, think about having a bit of a brace here and then squeezing up and through for the glutes. But yeah, definitely don't peel off the floor. That's a really bad mechanic to learn, and you can imagine if you ingrain that now, even if it doesn't flare you back up, if that's how you think you should use your glutes and your hips, and you try and do that with a deadlift with like 100 or 200 kilos on it, that's going to cause you some serious damage. Same if you try and do that with your squat as well. So we want to learn, keep this all as one unit, squeeze it with the glutes, keep this stiff and protected, and let the glutes do all the work.